Kwame Nkrumah and the dream of united Africa. Imagine a continent, not 54 separate countries, but one united federation, one currency, one army, one voice on the world stage. This wasn't just a fantasy. It was the life's work of one man who dared to dream bigger than anyone before him. His name was Kwame Nkrumah, and in the 1960s, he came closer than anyone to making the United States of Africa a reality. But his dream didn't just die with his overthrow. It sparked a movement that continues to shape Africa today. This is a story of ambition, betrayal, colonial resistance, and a vision so powerful that decades later, we're still asking, what if Nkrumah had succeeded? To understand Nkrumah's vision, we need to go back to 1909, to a small village in the Gold Coast, modern-day Ghana. Born into a colony, young Francis Enwie Kofi Ngonloma, who would later take the name Kwame Nkrumah, grew up watching British colonial officers treat his people as second-class citizens in their own land. But Nkrumah was gifted. He excelled in mission schools, eventually becoming a teacher himself. Yet something gnawed at him. He would later write, "I saw that the whole solution to the problem lay in political freedom for our people." In 1935, at age 26, Nkrumah made a decision that would change African history. He left for America to study at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, a historically black university. Here's where everything changed. In America and later in Britain, Nkrumah encountered ideas that were banned in colonial Africa. He met Marcus Garvey's followers who preached Africa for Africans. He studied the writings of W.E.B. Du Bois, who organized Pan-African congresses. He befriended George Padmore, the Trinidadian communist who became his mentor. These weren't just abstract theories. Nkrumah. He saw how the colonial powers had carved up Africa at the Berlin Conference of 1884, splitting kingdoms and ethnic groups with arbitrary lines on a map. He understood that Africa's weakness wasn't because of its people, it was because of its division. Nkrumah began to crystallize a radical idea. African independence wasn't enough. True freedom required unity. One colonizer could crush one colony, but could they crush a unified Africa? In 1947, armed with degrees in economics, sociology, and philosophy, and more importantly, armed with a revolutionary vision, Nkrumah returned home. The Gold Coast would never be the same. Nkrumah didn't waste time. He joined the United Gold Coast Convention, but quickly found their moderate approach frustrating. In 1949, he broke away to form his own party, the Convention People's Party, or CPP. His message was simple and electric: self-government now. Not in 10 years. Not when the British thought Africans were ready. Now, the colonial authorities were terrified. They threw him in prison. But here's what they didn't count on. Imprisoning Nkrumah only made him more popular. In 1951, while still in jail, Nkrumah's party won the general election in a landslide. The British had no choice but to release him and negotiate. By 1957, the Gold Coast became Ghana, the first sub-Saharan African nation to gain independence from colonial rule. On March 6, 1957, before hundreds of thousands, Nkrumah declared, "At long last, the battle has ended. Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever." The shockwaves rippled across Africa. If Ghana could do it, so could everyone else. Within 3 years, 17 African nations would gain independence in what became known as the Year of Africa in 1960. But Nkrumah wasn't satisfied with just Ghana's independence. He immediately began hosting conferences, meeting with other African leaders, and pushing his bigger idea, political union. In 1958, Ghana hosted the All-African Peoples Conference. Leaders and freedom fighters from across the continent gathered in Accra. Nkrumah laid out his vision. We have to prove that greatness is not to be measured in stockpiles of atom bombs. We must demonstrate that a power of a different kind can emerge in this atomic age. He didn't just talk. In 1958, Ghana and newly independent Guinea formed a union. In 1961, Mali joined, creating the Ghana-Guinea-Mali Union. It was symbolic, yes, but it was a start. Nkrumah was building his United States of Africa piece by piece. Meanwhile, at home, Nkrumah launched ambitious development projects. The Akosombo Dam, one of the world's largest hydroelectric projects. Free education for all children. New industries. Ghana's economy boomed. He became known as Ozajifo, the Redeemer. Across Africa, Nkrumah was a hero, the man who proved African independence was possible. But his greatest challenge was still ahead. May 25, 1963. Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. 32 African heads of state gathered for a historic summit. The goal, create a unified African organization. But behind closed doors, a fierce battle was brewing. On one side stood Nkrumah and what they called the Casablanca group, Ghana, Guinea, Mali, Morocco, and Egypt. They wanted immediate political federation. A United States of Africa with a continental government, one army, one central bank. On the other side stood the Monrovia group, led by Nigeria, Senegal, and Ethiopia. They wanted cooperation, yes, but they just won their independence. They weren't ready to give up sovereignty to some superstate. Nkrumah made his case passionately. The unity of our continent is essential. We must unite now or perish. We must recognize that our economic independence lies in our African Union and requires a common economic planning on a continental scale. He warned them about neocolonialism, the new way colonial powers would control Africa through economic dependence rather than direct rule. Only unity could resist it. But many leaders were skeptical. Nigerian President Abubakar Tafawa Balewa spoke for many when he argued that Africa was too diverse, the nations too different. Gradual cooperation made more sense than rushing into political union. The result? A compromise that devastated Nkrumah. The Organization of African Unity was born, but it was a loose cooperation arrangement, not the political federation he dreamed of. Each nation kept its sovereignty. There would be no United States of Africa. Nkrumah signed the charter, but he was deeply disappointed. He knew this wasn't enough. He returned to Ghana more determined than ever to push for unity, but also more isolated. Here's where the story gets complicated. Frustrated by opposition at home and abroad, Nkrumah began to change. In 1964, Ghana became a one-party state. He introduced a tension without trial. The hero of independence was becoming more authoritarian. Meanwhile, Ghana's economy was struggling. Nkrumah's ambitious projects were expensive. Cocoa prices fell. Debt mounted. People were getting frustrated. But there was another factor few people talked about openly, Western intelligence agencies, particularly the CIA, saw Nkrumah as too radical, too pro-Soviet, too dangerous. Declassified documents later revealed they actively worked to undermine him. By 1966, Nkrumah had enemies everywhere. His own military was plotting. Western powers wanted him gone. Even many ordinary Ghanaians were tired of economic hardship and political repression. February 24, 1966. Nkrumah boarded a plane to Beijing, China, on a peace mission to help end the Vietnam War. He had no idea it would be his last day as Ghana's president. While he was in the air, the military struck. A coup d'etat, led by General Emmanuel Kwame Nkrumah and supported by the police. By the time Nkrumah landed in China, he was a president without a country. The reaction in Ghana was mixed. Some celebrated, tearing down his statues, relieved to see the end of one-party rule. Others mourned, knowing Ghana had lost something irreplaceable. Nkrumah never returned home. President Sékou Touré of Guinea offered him sanctuary and even made him honorary co-president. But Nkrumah was heartbroken. He spent his exile years writing, trying to keep his Pan-African dream alive through books and speeches. On April 27, 1972, Kwame Nkrumah died in Bucharest, Romania, where he'd gone for medical treatment. He was 62 years old. He died in exile, his dream of a united Africa seemingly dead with him. But here's the thing about dreams. They don't die easily. In 2002, the OAU was dissolved and replaced by the African Union, with a vision much closer to Nkrumah's, including an eventual goal of a United States of Africa. In 2018, the African Continental Free Trade Area was established, creating the largest free trade area in the world by number of countries. It's the kind of economic integration Nkrumah advocated for. Today, African leaders still debate Nkrumah's vision. Is continental unity possible? Is it even desirable? Some say African problems require African solutions and united solutions. Others say sovereignty matters more. In Ghana, Nkrumah's legacy has been rehabilitated. His mausoleum is a national monument. His birthday is a national holiday. His on the currency. The man they overthrew is now the father of the nation. So was Nkrumah right? That's the question Africa is still grappling with. Look at the challenges. Colonial borders still divide ethnic groups and create conflict. African nations compete rather than cooperate for foreign investment. The continent is rich in resources, but many nations remain poor. Brain drain continues as talented Africans leave for opportunities elsewhere. If Europe, with its history of devastating wars, could unite economically and politically, why not Africa? But look at the counter-arguments too. Africa is incredibly diverse. Over 3,000 ethnic groups, more than 2,000 languages, different colonial legacies, different levels of development. Maybe Nkrumah's vision was too ambitious, too fast. Yet something interesting is happening. A new generation of Africans are connecting across borders like never before. Through technology, trade, and culture, they are building Nkrumah's dream from the ground up rather than top down. Kwame Nkrumah was flawed, increasingly authoritarian, sometimes economically reckless, unwilling to compromise. But he was also visionary. He saw that Africa's colonial divisions were artificial and destructive. He understood that in a world of superpowers, only a united Africa could truly be free. Today, 54 African nations sit in the African Union. They haven't merged into one country, but they are cooperating more than ever before. They are building continent-wide infrastructure. They are creating a single market. They are starting to speak with one voice on global issues. Nkrumah once said, "We face neither east nor west. We face forward." That forward vision of an Africa that stands on its own, united and strong. That dream isn't dead. It's just taking longer than he hoped. Maybe that's a real legacy of Kwame Nkrumah. Not that he succeeded in creating a United States of Africa, but that he dared to imagine it. And in imagining it, he planted a seed that continues to grow. The dream of a united Africa didn't die in 1966. It's still alive, still evolving, still inspiring each new generation to ask, what if we stopped thinking of ourselves as Ghanaians, Nigerians, Kenyans, South Africans, and started thinking of ourselves as Africans first? Nkrumah would say that's when the dream begins to come true. What do you think? Was Nkrumah a visionary ahead of his time, or was his dream of a United States of Africa unrealistic? Should Africa continue moving toward political unity, or is cooperation between sovereign nations enough? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this story fascinating, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the leaders and movements that shaped our world. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.